Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn webinar. How do you choose between build versus buy when it's time to replace your e-commerce system? Brought to you by ArcherPoint and Dynamicweb. According to Forrester, 72% of online consumers in the U.S. prefer to use web self-service to get answers to their questions rather than contacting a company directly. And according to Forbes, 70% of executives use smartphones and tablets to look up product or service information upon first learning of an offering. So in this 21st century digital commerce universe, the quality of your e-commerce site is more critical to your top-line revenue than ever before. If you're looking to upgrade your site, there are many options. The first consideration is to figure out if you're going to build your own custom solution from the ground up or buy a solution that already exists in the marketplace. Our presenter today is Richard Lee, Dynamicweb sales engineer and online specialist. Richard incorporates more than 15 years of digital agency and portal development experience to create technical demonstrations that show businesses how their e-business pain points can be addressed with technology. In today's webinar, Richard will delve into the key issues of build versus buy, giving you the framework for making a sound decision for your business. In under an hour, you will learn the key questions you need to ask when deciding on build versus buy, the pros and cons of building your own custom solution, the pros and cons of buying a solution already on the market, and best practices for evaluating both options. So let's go ahead and get started. Richard, over to you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Pleasure to be here today. Okay, so to buy or not to buy a platform, that's today's webinar. So let's paint this scenario. You want to make an e-commerce site. Okay, so there are two distinct paths ahead of you. You build it yourself with the help of one or more programmers, or you get a huge jump start with buying a platform and then customizing and configuring it again with the help of one or more developers. On the custom side, you can shorten the time it takes to build certain components by using a framework, templates, or snippet code, so you're not coding every single element from scratch. But depending on your initial requirements, this can take a very long time to do. Okay, so, but when you consider a platform, entire realms of functionality like content management, e-commerce, and digital marketing would have already been developed, and then it leaves you with the ability to start using it immediately or customizing it and configuring the foundation, again with the use of one or more developers. And as you can imagine, that does not take as long as the other method. Okay, so, but time savings is not the only consideration. You know, building it from scratch means that you would own the IP 100%, whereas when you buy a platform, the technology already made is owned by somebody else. Only through a license are you allowed to customize it. Nonetheless, in both instances or both paths that you can take, keeping the end in mind is essential. That is, maintaining it once it has been built. Here are some other equally important considerations regardless of the path you take. So technical resources. Where are these coming from? Are these people in-house or are they outsourced? The budget to develop it, to support it, to maintain it, to enhance it long-term. Also time frame to go live. Now, something around this time frame to go live, it's not just the time to develop it, but you know, if you're looking at a very large scale project, doing it in phases, whether you're building this from scratch or using a platform, allows you to go live with certain components so that you can begin to see an ROI while maybe other components of the entire system are continuing to be developed. And then also the level of customization required. So, you know, there are always talks of like, you know, we are a family-run business, 100-year-old company. We have very unique ways of doing things. So that, you know, sometimes means that they may be using systems of record like an ERP or CRM, and they kind of conform to how the structure of those systems exists. But then when it comes to the website is when they feel like, okay, we want it to be completely the way we operate, all the way down to exact human processes. That's also another consideration on whether you can actually fit that kind of customization onto a platform itself, or you have to go the complete 100% customization route. And then the other component, which is often a discussion, especially in the Archer Point dynamic web world, is the integration requirements. Are you connecting to a CRM, an ERP, a PIM, a MAM, a media asset management system, or all of the above? Now, obviously, again, in a phased approach, you're not going to connect all four of those types of systems together in one swoop and then go live a month later. Again, it's a phased approach to it. But again, all these things considered despite the path that you might choose to go into. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into the challenges of making a from scratch 100% custom behavioral scoring system. Okay, now behavioral scoring is the ability to recognize the behavior of a web shopper during their journey on your website. So specifically, if your site sells men's, women's, and children's shoes, and the last few pages a person looked at were women's shoes, then showing only women's shoes on the home page where one might typically see all the lines is one way that behavioral scoring is used. Basically, it's identifying people, as we see in the diagram over here on the right, that it's like, okay, user A is looking at women's shoes, but user C, this person over here, is looking at men's shoes. So they're not really qualifying for the women's shoes persona that we have set up. And scoring means that there's behind the scenes, there's points being added to a user session. Either this user is anonymous, a guest checkout, potential guest checkout person, or they're actually a registered user. Nonetheless, you're tracking them by assigning points to their behavior, and if their behavior hits, let's say, 80 points in the realm of women's shoes, then something different happens, like the home page showing only women's shoes above the fold and then all the other shoe products. So when we look at it on the left side in terms of the conceptual programming side, where we're trying to understand the big picture, it's not just let's put code down and as we think it, we develop things, which sometimes people do. But when you're building something from scratch that's going to be very large scale, you're looking conceptually at the very, very big picture of it, and then developing, let's say, in the confines of this entire box being your website, we're looking at, foundational components and then sort of building up from there. So with a scoring system, it needs to be very somewhat integrated into the entire solution, because scoring is based on giving points to behaviors, but then once those behaviors have been assigned points, it's another component within the system, like maybe in the marketing module or in the content management system, that it's capable of identifying these points and then using it to show different content dynamically. So by having that scoring system tightly integrated, maybe at the early stages where it's part of the underlying foundation, those are things that you have to consider doing. And that's where like having not just seasoned developers, but people who have worked on a scoring type of system before, whether it's a Marketo or it's like a dynamic web solution, so they know that how deeply integrated it is. It's not an afterthought. It's something that's part of the early conversations in the overall architecture of your design. So that you can imagine that if you do it at this early stage, even if you think it out, it takes a lot of time to do. And certainly if you think about it later and it's something you want to apply, it might take more effort to kind of rip apart what you've done, insert this module and way of communicating, and obviously it takes more time to do. So let's see. So let's see, closing remarks here between building versus buying so that I could dive into who we are. And so Dynamicweb is a platform. We are kind of a hybrid between building from scratch and building a platform, because nonetheless our platform, as robust as it is, it requires configuration and customization to make it really a usable solution for our customers. So, and you know, at the end of the day, we all have very big ambitions. We all have limited resources, but we have to decide, you know, between the two, and it's something that's a matter that a factor too, that to bring the two together is that, you know, building from scratch, you will own this IP 100%. It's yours. You don't have to pay a license fee, and you own it. So that becomes an asset to your business because you own it 100%. Whereas when you buy a platform or you license a platform, you're using it under a licensed program. You are licensed to use it and customize it, but at the end of the day, you do not own it 100%. So for those unique scenarios where owning the IP 100%, that's likely a more build from scratch scenario. But if it's more like, you know, we don't need to own the IP, we have our brand, we have what we sell as our product line, but we need a platform to get to e-commerce sooner than later. That's where going with a platform is kind of a jump start. So I'm going to migrate now to an introduction to Dynamicweb and our platform, first with a PowerPoint deck, a little brief history about ourselves, some customer references. And then on the live site, I'm going to show you kind of what we see on the front end and show how the distinction is that sometimes a build from scratch solution in a platform, certainly on the front end, you can't tell the difference. But then as we get into the back end, I'll begin to show you, you know, how snippets of code here and there constitute a bigger picture of something that a platform certainly does support. So a little bit about Dynamicweb. We got our start in 1999 in the country of Denmark, same home to Navision. We as a global company are present in 13 countries with over 100 employees worldwide, over 4,500 customers worldwide, and since many of them have more than one solution like B2B, B2C, the dealer portal, it's why we have many more thousands of solutions. Globally, we have over 200 certified partners, though in the U.S. we have really just less than 2 handfuls, and ArcherPoint being one of our key partners. Our top 3 markets that we serve are manufacturing, wholesale trade, and retail trade. And, whoops, I got a repeat here. My apologies. Okay, well, I have Gardner here had some nice things to say about our ability to integrate with ERP applications, particularly around wholesaling and manufacturing. They also recognize us as an all-in-one business platform. So just like in Navision, everything from financial operations, warehouse management, logistics, project management, it's all housed in one application, essentially one screen to turn to for all the different needs of your operation of your business. Whereas everything related for your website, without having to turn to outside parties like Marketo, HubSpot, a system to do A/B split testing, something to do with email marketing, for example, a Constant Contact, MailChimp, Silverpop, those are all built into Dynamicweb. And I'll explain why in screens to come as well as in the live demo. In fact, here's that next screen, the solution framework, also known as my favorite slide on the deck. So on the left side, we have our data sources. Specifically, we're looking at Nav in today's session here. And then on the far right, we're talking about the web omnichannel. That's obviously your website, but of course, that must be mobile responsive because 60% of your traffic coming in today is coming in on a mobile device. We're talking about an e-commerce shop, so of course, you're selling online using the product information information and specific pricing coming in from Nav. The self-service portal is the Amazon way. Customers don't have to call in or email or fax their questions or anything like that. They basically go to the self-service portal or customer center, whatever you may call it on your website, and they help themselves to what do they order recently, where is that order in terms of shipping. I'd like to reorder something that I even placed a few years ago when I know for sure I placed that by phone or fax. I can reorder it online today. And then outputting it to various other places, email marketing, social media, Twitter and Facebook out of the box. And then third-party marketplaces, because we recognize that manufacturers may be selling to big box stores, they're selling online in their own channel as well, but they're also selling to, let's say, through Amazon. And with Amazon, it requires you to create an XML document, and if you have thousands of products, it's now another extra amount of work that you need to be doing. And with our platform, we have third-party marketplace support built in. So within the same interface that you're looking at products, you could basically put a check mark next to Amazon, eBay, Wayfair, wherever you may be selling through as a third-party marketplace, and that XML document will be generated, and through push or pull, it'll communicate to that third party. And then right in the center is where we sit. We are content management, e-commerce, marketing solution. We call ourselves an all-in-one platform. We also colloquially in-house say that we're more than a shopping cart. And that's something that, again, with back to the whole build versus buy argument, we're promoting our platform as a solution to give any of you a head start in developing a solution for your needs faster. Obviously, if you need to own this, even if you bought this software up front, you're still operating with us under a license agreement. That's not the same as owning the intellectual property 100% yourself, which is what you'd get if you were to develop this from scratch. But what I'm going to show you here, that some things like, content management, maybe in 1997 content management was very simple, but today content management involves search engine optimization, the right keywords to use, it involves A/B split tests, it involves a lot of things that will make your site more successful if you implement, and therefore may require on your build from scratch path to have all of these add-ons coming in maybe from third parties. And as any of you know, sometimes when you're cobbling a lot of different third-party applications together, they don't always play well, and then that requires a lot more time and development to make sure that they play well. And it might require a lot of different consultants running around. It's a little too much management just to get this project done. And same goes for e-commerce and marketing. In our environment, the three are together because, as you know, with a website, there's lots of experiences that are happening that the ERP doesn't care about. The ERP only cares about, let's say, to simplify, products, customers, specific pricing, sales orders, purchase orders, and those items are related in part and parcel to an e-commerce experience. But things like experiential information, like are they looking at products? Are they looking at products but not buying this? That kind of information we capture as well, but not only capture, we can utilize to help with marketing to people. So if you've identified, and you can certainly do this in the ERP, identify customers as having bought this widget and they're shipping to Detroit, you can ask your ERP analyst to spit that out for you. But with our product, it's very easy to identify those types of customers so that you can target those people. And I'm going to show you that live mode as well. And then integration framework is how we connect. In fact, let me talk about it here. We integrate to Nav using web services. We're compatible with Nav 2009 R2, where the web services functionality was introduced. Some versions have customized web services. We can certainly connect to that, and all the way up to present day 2016 and all the iterations in between. So we're looking to connect to it in both live or batch mode or a blend of both. Obviously live would be like customer specific pricing or inventory. And as you know, with e-commerce, there's always a fluctuation of inventory with people coming in, people adding to the cart, and then 20 more people coming in and wanting the same product to add to the cart, and Dynamicweb helps handle and mitigate all that. And then batch mode, those are things that aren't changing that frequently, like products and languages and currencies and customer information as well. Okay, so here are some customer references that we're proud of. This is a NAV customer. This is Weber Grills. This is for their European division. Over 35 websites running off of our single platform. So imagine a content manager who speaks all of Scandinavian languages. They can log in, single sign-on, and then access various different sites. That could be a blend of B2B, B2C, multiple languages, multiple currencies. So starting off in Denmark with a population of 5 million people, it's not the largest country in the world, we made sure that we covered all the grounds, and not just in the B2B and B2C realms, really tying them together, but also with the ability to connect to various different systems of record, like these guys connect to 3 different ones, PIM, NAV, and CRM. And the ability for multiple languages and multiple currencies and multiple taxes. So you don't have to go too far and wide. Obviously, taxes, we work with Avalara to handle those things. Here's another NAV customer, J. Emanuel Beauty, a B2C e-commerce site as well. And a mutual customer between ArcherPoint and ourselves is Good Source. They are a food services company, B2B web shop, using NAV with NAV integration and our platform, as well as Perfion's PIM solution. Okay, so let me switch over to the live demo. I'll leave at the contact page here, which I'll return to shortly. Okay, so this is the front end of my spare parts demo. It's not a in what it lacks in design, because it was designed by our engineers, it really supports all of the out-of-the-box functionality that we have. So let me go over here in this narrative that I have set up. Spare parts, we're selling spare computer parts, and you can imagine, what's inside your computer parts. Computer, one of those things is a hard drive. So let me point out some interesting facts here. So I am logged in right now as a customer, B2B customer. I see my specific pricing because I'm logged in. I see the product information. I see filtering information over here, the characteristics from, let's say, the manufacturer's interface that are specific to hard drives. All of this information here comes in from NAV. And then Dynamicweb offers that pretty interface to conduct your e-commerce business online. We have some great built-in features such as infinite scroll, so that when I get to the bottom of the page, it keeps showing me more and more, as opposed to showing me, page 1 of 10 showing 10 at a time. I also have different ways of presenting the information here, so that we know in a B2B environment, they don't need to see medium-sized pictures. They could see either a tiny thumbnail or no image whatsoever. They're really going by SKU number. They want an easy way of adding a bunch to the cart, and we give them that option with this feature here in the various different views. Let me jump over here to Customer Center. That speaks to the self-service portal that I had in my favorite slide on the deck. And that's where we show all the orders that have occurred with either our platform or have occurred because they're sitting inside of NAV. And because of our integration inside of NAV, we could certainly bring over orders that were placed by phone and fax, and while also giving them a modern upgrade where we can click on reorder, and they could reorder from something that they placed by fax, and it orders it and basically puts it in the cart with today's pricing, with the assumptions or verification that the product is still sold and is in stock, and then from that foundational past order, they can configure a new order that way as well. Favorites list is another way that we show that kind of Excel-like spreadsheet, that order guide that people go in rapidly to place orders. So in a B2B environment, this is typically the view you might see. So in a B2B portal, you wouldn't necessarily have this buried inside a customer center. You'd have it right available somewhere else. And we have some nice, easy search functionality. So in a way, we look at this on the front end. If, let's say, didn't know about this site, you look at this, it's like, okay, wow, that's an amazing, they did a lot of development to get this to do it right, not knowing that there's a platform behind it that a lot of the features like this search functionality where it has the auto lookup is already baked in, or the favorites list, the customer center, all those things are already baked in, plus the integration framework to connect to Nav faster than trying to connect in a more manual from scratch way. So that's part of the experience, and I encourage all of you, like as you go out in the web and you look at sites that you like, there's a favorite tool of mine that's called BuiltWith, and what BuiltWith does, it allows you to type in a URL of a website that you like, and it quickly tells you what's behind the scenes. So it looks under the hood, inside the code, and it tells you what platform it's made on, if it is made with a platform. But if it's not made with a platform, you'll see like IIS is the server, ASP.NET is the framework, and then you'll see for the cart functionality, it'll say something like custom cart, which is an indication that that was very customized. And you can imagine there's a lot of that online, which works to a point, but then it kind of gets weaker when, let's say, you need to do more things with it that's harder to customize, like marketing stuff. And let me use that as a segue to pop out of here into Dynamicweb backend. So this is Dynamicweb. We are at version 9. Version 9 is released just this year, and I'm proud to have it as part of my demo today. And what I want to show you is, like, in the two paths that we had in my earlier part of my PowerPoint deck where, that's built from scratch, and I mentioned how if you were building from scratch, programmers have at their disposal, they have templates that they can follow, they have a framework that they can follow, like if you wanted to do something with a more GUI or a graphic user interface that was more mobile friendly, you can start with like Angular.js. It's just a faster way of developing. So, for example, if let's say you want to make a content management system like what we have over here, if I go here to message and I see the details of my message here, let me click here, I see an editor that resembles what I might see inside of Word. This editor is actually this editor over here, which is what I mentioned earlier, a snippet of code that you can get as a license, possibly for free, from a company like this company's CK editor, and you can implement it into your custom solution. So you don't have to make these buttons yourself and the functionality that each of these buttons represent. You could certainly do that. And in our case, we actually have that implemented in our solution. But as we know today, 2016, the content management solution isn't what it was back in, let's say, 1997, where it was such a time saver that I didn't need to know any HTML to edit a page. Content management is actually way more than adding content. In our world, it includes, let's say, search engine optimization. Let me take us out of here by just save and close. And if I go over here under Tools, I have search engine optimization built in. I have the ability to see the metrics of a page. Under marketing here, I have the ability to set up a split test and things like that. So those are all part and parcel to content management, and that's where, coming in from the from scratch method, your developers or whoever else is involved with the project, the architect, would need to know all of what's going on in the world today that's part and parcel to the experience that's a robust experience. Really, from the tools that you have in the back end, it's going to help you with promoting the site in the channel that you're in, whether it's mobile or a website, and it's your e-commerce site, it's your own channel of the web. You want to promote it and you want to grow that channel. Having the right tools behind the scenes is only going to help you. So CK Editor is really just a tiny fraction of what a content management does. Obviously it has that look and feel of a word processor, but there are many more things beyond that that are part of the experience of being able to control how your content appears online. Let's move on here to, let's say, users. Now this is where it gets to where, it, it gets, again, a little more challenging around, again, more on the pro side towards a platform because it's integrated already. Customizing something like this from scratch is more challenging. And what I'm talking about here is, we call it a smart search, but all of you would know it as customer segmentation. Now, clearly, you're integrated in the ERP, and that's who we're talking about here. You can turn to your ERP analyst and say, hey, can you dig up all the people who bought this product on Christmas Day? And they could just see, all right, all the sales orders on Christmas Day for this particular product. They'll export that. They'll give you all the email addresses. You pump that into your email marketing program, and you'll send it off. 2 people required to put that together, a lot of time required to do that. Dynamicweb has that built into the platform. So because we integrate to Nav, in one respect, we could certainly access Nav through our platform to pull out that information for us. But because this section is only used for email marketing, what we're seeing over here is really tied to a potential group of people that we could send an email targeted marketing message to. But let me show you where this is where it falls short, that your ERP analyst will not be able to dig up this information, because obviously over here on bought a product is underneath here behavior on website. So behavior on website as it relates to an ERP is, let's say, bought a product. That's a no-brainer. Of course, the ERP is going to have that information. But related to the experience of a website that's not like a full conversion like buying a product, what if it's a micro conversion like visiting a page or viewing a product? Didn't buy it, so why would it be inside of the ERP? It would only be inside of Dynamicweb. To customize something like this, you need to know that such a possibility exists. And then let's say you do know how to do it. Developing this kind of thing is really a deeply entrenched integrated solution into the platform, or even into your custom solution, like in that layered cake illustration I showed earlier. So here I can say I want to find customers who view the product, and then I pick the product from my product catalog over here, while also buying a product. So it's half in the ERP world and half in the experiential side, and that's where Dynamicweb and other solutions that might include this type of technology really leverage information on the experiential side that honestly is very difficult to create, because it's really requiring a deep understanding of segmentation and starting with this at the beginning. So keeping the end in mind, you heard me say that, if keeping the end in mind is about maintaining the site and a bunch of other things, if in the end of the day I want to be able to do this type of segmentation, I have to think about this right at the very beginning of the first line of code happening if I'm going the build from scratch route. Okay, so now let me jump over here to eCommerce and show you a feature that I have here. Actually, I didn't show it here. This is personalization. So let me show you how that works over here. Personalization is whereby we can either recognize inbound behavior to do something that's dynamically changing the page, or based on on-site behavior. So if I look at the details of this hard drive here, and I see that here are the details. Again, all this information comes from Nav. We also have the ability to see upsells and cross-sells on the same page. Again, you'd have to code that from scratch if you want to do that. A bit of a challenge, to be honest. But if you have a lot of developers and obviously architects and programmers, you can do it yourself. Platforms were made by the same kind of people. Hard drives. So let's go back. Now, back to personalization here. I'm going to show you how something appears here based on the fact that I looked at 2 hard drives. This is where scoring is happening again. You know, here's a user. They're looking at, I sell hard drives, power supplies, CPUs. It's a lot of different things I carry, just like the women's shoes or shoes example I gave earlier. Now, I just did a certain behavior, which is I looked at enough hard drives for the system to recognize this guy's interested in hard drives. So now if I give my email address, you've seen this kind of thing on like an LL Bean. You go to the site, hey, welcome to our homepage, give us your email address, and then you get 10% off. But here I'm going to get, let's say, a 25% off coupon, so that's an incentive for me to give my email address as a customer. But on the back end, my email address is now associated with buying hard drives or interested in buying hard drives. So there your marketing people have a very segmented list of people doing a certain behavior to capture their email address. That's what personalization allows us to do. This is just one of many, many kinds of examples where a pop-up appears because it's recognizing a certain number of points that have been acquired. So here showing you inside of eCommerce, inside of the product catalog, which by the way comes in from Nav, but now I'm capable of augmenting this information so that my personalization feature can benefit from knowing that if someone clicks on this processor under here, add profile points, I can give this particular product a series of points so that when these points are achieved, let's say I give if someone looks at this product, I give them 34 points. And somewhere in the system, it's identifying that, hey, this person who loves processors has 50 points or higher, then do the following. And that could be show the pop-up or automatically add a 10% coupon in their shopping cart and just put a little banner at the top that says we added a coupon to your shopping cart. So something like that, those kinds of behaviors, all kind of standard inside of Dynamicweb, but frankly very challenging to build from scratch. And with Dynamicweb, with its start in 1999, all of the add-ons and features were mostly influenced by customers who wanted to do these things and maybe didn't know how to do or saw that their friends at larger brands were capable of doing it because they were using multi-million-dollar platforms. So that's what we have built in. And then last but not least is the marketing side of things here. We have this built in. So the scoring system, that's inside the underlying part of this system here. And I'm going to show you an example of some scoring that happens in the email marketing side of things. So let me just show you really quickly that under system emails, this is built into Dynamicweb. It's where we can recognize abandoned carts. If you notice over here, I have 8 products in the cart, totaling that amount. It means that I'm a B2B customer. I have left some items in the cart. The good news is in the B2B environment, we know who they are, so the carts are not abandoned. If I go here to eCommerce and then back to orders, we'll see in the system, obviously, orders in black are completed orders, sales orders or purchase orders are also pushed back into the ERP. But abandoned carts are items in red, common to all websites. But in a B2B environment, we know who's logged in, and that's why we see the name of the customer and we see the amount that they may have in their cart left over from their last session. And the marketing system will automatically email those customers who left an abandoned cart with a specific message that's maybe tailored to them because of the group that they belong to. That's grouping information for discounts based inside of Nav, for example. But what I wanted to just finish off with here today is under sending a newsletter campaign and what's involved in terms of the metrics that we collect. So obviously with competing against a MailChimp or Constant Contact, we collect all the metrics numerically across a desktop, tablet, and phone, graphically as well. But let's say we wanted to see what are the details of this particular customer. And with every interaction that we have with a customer through email or on the website, they're earning a little performance score here in this column over here. 5 might mean that they deleted the email immediately, but 25 means that they spent some time looking at this maybe on different devices, clicking on the links to get to the page, etc. And then we see that this user received 11 emails, they opened all 11 emails, and they've been collecting these performance points all along the way, and here they have a score of 90. So this is not 90 out of 100. It simply means that 90 out of 1,000. But anything, let's say in my world here, my demo, greater than 40 as a performance score is a great indication that this customer, no matter what we send them in terms of an email, is going to open up the email. Now imagine tied to that segmentation that I'm sending them an email. I know they're going to open it up because they have a high performance score over here on the email side, but this email really pertains to them because they bought this tractor from us a year ago, and I'm talking about the spare parts that they're going to need for it, like new blades, new bags, etc. And it's pertinent because this is about the mean time between failure when those items begin to break down, and it's particular to this person. So that's basically my demo in a nutshell in the promotion of it. To sum up, we um, we have spent a lot of time and effort to develop our platform. That was the angle that we went versus the angle where, just providing microscopic components for a building from scratch solution that other companies have done, which works for them just as well. It's just that when we began, we had enough customers in the content side who wanted to do e-commerce and grow from there, and that's why at version 9, you see we've been around for quite some time with developing the feature set and just enabling customers who wanted to jumpstart getting to e-commerce faster while also not leaving their legacy systems behind. If it's legacy like an older ERP or their back office, they get to tie that to their modern website today. I'm happy to answer any questions, Suzanne.
All right, great. Thank you, Richard. I do have a couple of questions for you here. Do you have to replace the entire legacy system to work with Dynamicweb?
Well, let's see. So if we mean the legacy system of a back office, maybe. If it's on the back office side, like I mentioned with Nav, we're compatible from 2009 R2 to 2016. So let's say you were using version 5 and you want to hook that up to the website. The question is then, how do we get that data over? And if you want to do it more like in real time or in a batch or live mode, we need web services to connect to it. So that's a kind of a challenge there. If also talking about what I commonly hear too is that sometimes people refer to the legacy system as the website itself, that they have a website and maybe they went live with it not too long ago. They want to basically use our platform as kind of that go-between the ERP and their current website. And in some respects, we could maybe salvage that interface, but obviously we need to change all the plumbing, and the platform kind of provides that, kitchen sink and all the plumbing to connect to it. So the only thing saved is kind of the front-end interface, and we would only save it if that interface were modern enough, it's mobile responsive, and it has an interface that is where the user experience or UX is smart and well done. Then obviously why redo that? We could continue to work with that one. So I hope that answers the question.
I think so. So if you had the time, money, and staff, why would you go with the standard solution?
All right, that's a great question. I think at the end of the day, you don't need to go with that. If you feel strong enough that, like, hey, what we're trying to do here is to satisfy, let's say, back to the family-run business that has unique and distinct ways of doing things. Going with a platform, it might give you a jump start in some ways, but maybe there are some assumptions that that you do want marketing built in, that you do want a scoring system built in, so you don't have to do that yourself. But if those items were not in the mix for the near or far future, and you really just, the programmers are feeling strongly that, what, we could do this ourselves, we could do it, even rapidly, faster than what people think would take, then go for it. By all means, try it out that way. It might require some constant pivoting to make sure that you're trying to achieve it, but also whatever the route might be, whether you went with a custom solution or a platform solution, having a return on your investment or being able to do it on a phased approach so that 6 months later from start date, you're capable of going live with something and have it run and be operational, that probably would be the best approach, because sometimes customers help you with defining what the solution should be, not necessarily all the people in the company operating in the vacuum of that environment. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, so is there any case where a custom system actually, where you've seen actually saves a company money?
Again, I think that it depends on where they are. Sometimes, with our solution and the integration to an ERP, it's at a certain price point that may exceed the budget of customers who don't have that budget to do it that way. So they have no choice but to go with a non-licensed product or to go with developing this on their own, as long as they recognize that maybe that does not include a full integration into their ERP. It may not include certain components that certainly, I mean, you could add a marketing solution even with a MailChimp solution. There's MailChimp Pro that you can integrate into your site, which you could do later on. So yeah, in a way, like if you don't have the budget of working with a dynamic web solution, then you're not left with, in no man's land. There's another alternative to that, and you know what? It might save you a lot of money because you're not having to spend money on an ongoing license fee, which in a Microsoft environment, that's what we live by. And so if you went that route, it's as long as you spend a lot of time planning it. And back to that slide with the layered cake, if you look at the big picture and you're thinking of the end in mind, and the end is not just like going live, the end is, let's say, 4 years later, 5 years later, who's going to maintain this? Or will these developers still be around? If that's part of the big picture and you've considered all those options, then you can go that custom route. You can save money in either the cost of the license and the implementation of a larger product, but again, with considering all the things in mind, that the maintenance costs, the sustainability, the feature sets that you may need down the road, especially as a solution like this comes online. Sometimes a solution like this, you go live, your customers love it, they want even more. That's when you realize, aha, there's the limit, and the limit is after the customers have told us what they want to see more and more. So it can certainly be that route. I'm not saying that it can't be just because I represent a platform. That's definitely a possibility. It's just that all things considered have to be considered first and foremost.
Yeah, so long-term versus short-term costs could vary greatly depending on if you build or buy. I have one last question. In your demo you were showing earlier of the e-commerce site, is the design flexible? The demo you mentioned, it was kind of a simplistic design, but if we want a more graphic-intensive e-commerce site, can Dynamicweb deliver?
Oh, for sure. My site here is simplistic. It's definitely, yeah, I apologize for its lack of design. But let's take a look at, our own customers over here. I'll pop them out on a few tabs up here at the top from memory. Okay, and so here Magpul is a firearms manufacturer. They're using our platform for both B2C and B2B, and here when I resize it down, just to show you it's responsive, we got the burger menu over here. So
Nice.
if this were your iPhone, it fits at least width-wise. And then here Lorenz is they sell sheet music to churches, a lot of sheet music, and their site is also responsive. It's, this is kind of their level of design, is what they wanted. And then J Manual Beauty, this is a cosmetics company. This person, J Manual, has got a celebrity status himself. So the company, when J Manual which is part of Iman Cosmetics, we work with Iman, and so does their agency that does all the designs. So they gave us the designs, and we skinned it upon our platform, and that's how we work with the company. So it is open. You know, the sky's the limit when it comes to design. We don't hinder that in any way because we have a platform. And the same would go for a custom solution. It's, again, you can't tell, most people can't tell when they look at this, even myself, I can't tell. I'd have to look under the hood either at the code level or go with to build with to see how is this site made. So design is sky's the limit, you name it, however you imagine it to be, either both a blend of functionality and, you know, cool aesthetics, that can be part of a dynamic web solution as well.
Nice to see the more popular parallax type design there. So thank you for showing us that. I think that answers all of our questions at this time. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Richard, and everyone else who showed up today to spend a little bit of their day with us. I hope you find it time or consider it time well spent. We'd like to continue to offer value and ask that you take just a few more moments of your day to give us your feedback on this webinar as well as topics you'd like covered in future Lunch and Learn sessions. Simply send your comments to info@archerpoint.com. Again, that's info@archerpoint.com. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and this concludes today's session.